Okay, I'm just going to record the beginning of it, I think. Okay, so welcome. I'm launching a new program, and it's called Know Thyself, that you're probably most of you are familiar with. The famous saying written on the Oracle at Delphi, known by Socrates. My director is giving me some advice. So the purpose of this is to share some insights I've had in the development of spirituality, and really to provide a beginning of building relationship and beginning of a community to explore some ideas together and give options and opportunities for further participation. Let me just see if anybody else. Okay. No, I'm not. Okay. Okay, let's see, almost, okay. So the theme of the talk tonight is the nature of the soul, its powers and its gifts. And I'm going to share with you why we're going to be speaking about this topic in what context. The soul in the Platonic tradition is the source of our life, and it is the power that we get from higher worlds to live in this physical body, and our connection between the physical world and the higher world. And it is a gift. It's a gift because it's this connection. But in our modern world, there are a lot of criticisms, especially in a lot of spiritual discussions and perspectives about the role of the soul in spirituality. So let's just discuss a few examples. Like, for one, much of the meditative traditions is to turn our thoughts off, right? To disconnect. Well, if we're disconnecting, then we're disconnecting in many ways from our soul, trying to reach a level beyond the soul, a level of spirituality, to disconnect for how our particular perspective on how we see the world. So a lot of spirituality today is about disconnecting from the particular me and embracing the universal and seeing through the eyes of the universal. But obviously that is one of the primary goals of spirituality. But at the same time, what's the role of our particular being in that whole process? And this raises the question of integration, because what people do, they go from a movement from their particular self to a kind of a transcendental experience. And the question is, well, that transcendental experience I just benefited by, perhaps in a meditation retreat or certain exercises, how do I bring that into my specific life, in my particular world? When I do that specific exercise, I can enter into those higher states. But after I exhaust that energy or leave that retreat, how do I bring it back into my world? That whole issue is the issue of integration, the issue that people are well aware of. And the nature of that question of integration is really the question of, how does my soul fit into the whole picture of universality? Well, in Buddhism, for example, they don't have the conception, the idea of the soul, really in the most of their tradition, especially the Zen tradition. There's no discussion of the soul. The whole idea is not to think about metaphysics. Let me just check if anyone's waiting. Okay. So it's very difficult for people to discuss that whole question of integration. Now, there are other criticisms of the nature of the soul. In some traditions, the soul is considered something that's fallen, right? In certain Christian traditions, I don't think every Christian tradition thinks this way necessarily, but the soul is considered to have experienced a fallen state, and so is filled with sin. And so a lot of the dualist tradition of the West is the whole idea of getting outside of the the soul and the need to go through some kind of saving process, some kind of redemption to fix the soul. Just make sure I had one other idea wanted to share. Yeah, and so perhaps the most important idea is the kind of like the psychological idea that our soul or particular self and all its experiences is sick, right? That's the medical model, that our soul is sick and it needs to be healed and fixed. Well, in that context as well, in what way is the soul a gift? And a lot of people feel that in their lives. They feel that our culture that's so focused on our personal experience from our families and what we may have experienced and the difficulties that we have inherited from that experience, how that has affected us. So in that context as well, where is the light and the gift and the power of the soul in the process of healing? A lot of it is to clean out all the history of our soul and heal it through various psychological approaches. And some of those also are connected. That psychological picture is all sometimes or very often connected with the spiritual kind of new age perspective of transcending the self. Once again, embracing some kind of universality. So once I get beyond my particular perspective needs, I can embrace the universal and feel good, right? So the ultimate idea is that our particular experience in the world doesn't feel good. We have all these thoughts that drive us crazy. So how do I feel good, right? How do I break through all my patterns? So a lot of our thinking about the soul is our specific mental life. How do we break those patterns to feel good? So a lot of the work today in psychology and spirituality is to go through that process of feeling good. Just one second. Welcome. I think next time it's easier just to let everybody in. I don't know why I leave that option. So welcome for the people joining. Just to summarize, just a quick introduction that we generally don't talk about the powers and the gifts of the soul in a contemporary context and many religious contexts such as Buddhism or Christianity. But in this talk, we're going to focus on what the nature of the power and the gift of the soul is. And so another perspective in contrast to some of those ideas where can we, let's see, mute?
I am very skeptical that we have power to pull off a pattern of reshuffling.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why this.
Oh, you're muted there. Okay. Okay, so to continue, we in the world of, as we said, psychology, certain approaches to religious traditions, the soul is not looked as a gift or a power that we want to embrace, but something we want to transcend to enter into the universal. But at the same time, we can look from our same contemporary cultural context, and there's a way we speak about the soul. It's kind of a very common example where we see the soul in really positive ways. So if you consider like the idea of a great musician, a great singer, famous singer, say a Bob Dylan, right? Somebody who has got a soul, and that person, like Bob Dylan, especially won the Nobel Prize, and such an amazing poetic soul. He won the Nobel Prize, recognized, a highest kind of literary award, that he expressed a very profound and powerful vision. Well, he goes around the world for so many decades to sold out crowds to share his specific vision of how he sees the world and how through his experience, through his particular language, he's able to express this in ways that elevate our perspective. He allows us to see through his eyes, right? So a person like that, when we look at it, we say, what a soul, right? What an amazing person. People are lining up to see these great performers who are able to express their specific personality and the powers of their souls for everyone to see. So we consider those the greatest gift. But in a certain way, we look at these people like they're one of a kind, right? They're the rare individuals that we admire. And that's why people line up and are willing to spend so much money to see them and to hear what they have to say. But how can we look at our own soul in that way, right? To see that the amazing power, the beauty, the creativity that we see in some of the greatest souls that have lived and inspire us. How do we see that our soul also has that kind of power and gift for our specific life, right? And it's not just a certain talent or gift that a few great human beings have, but it's something inherent to the nature of the human soul that we all possess to inspire and heal and help elevate our lives. So I wanted to give you a quick story to illustrate this concept and a beautiful image. Yesterday was the anniversary of the passing of a famous teacher in the Jewish world. It was called the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he's known because for many things, but one of the things he did at the end of his life, he had so many people who wanted to see him. He lived in Brooklyn for most of his life. So many people wanted to see him and speak to him that he couldn't deal with all the requests. In fact, I believe he got like more mail than anybody else, any other private citizen in the United States on a regular basis, because he had so many requests for advice and help. And he answered them. That's why he got so much mail, because he actually spent his days answering all these requests. So people lined up in the streets in Brooklyn to see him and to receive his blessing and advice. And he would just spend a moment or two with each person, and he would hand them $1. He would give each person $1 that they would then give to charity. So he was in his 80s while he was doing this, and standing there for I don't know how often he did it, but very often, at least once a week, he did this for like 8 hours at a time. So a man in his 80s standing there nonstop for 8 hours at a time, addressing, or giving a greeting and a brief blessing to thousands of people. So one lady shouted out to him, "Rebbe, how do you do it?" Right? And he said, "If does a diamond dealer get tired counting his diamonds?" Isn't that a beautiful, beautiful image? Does a diamond dealer get tired counting his diamonds? Right? To look at his wealth, to take pleasure in the wealth that he sees. So the meaning of that is that when he looked into each person's soul, he saw the diamond that it was. It's an image used obviously in many spiritual traditions, but it's a beautiful experience. It's a vivid image of a person looking into every single person that passes by and seeing their soul as a diamond. And so the question for us is, how do we now get beyond a cloud of our mental lives to see that diamond within us? So what I would like to do, we're going to do that in a few minutes. This is a big challenge, a big question. It's a life question. And what I want to share with you and begin tonight is that what I would like to dedicate is discussion and exploration of how we can, through various wisdom traditions, connect to the ideas and disciplines and questions and explorations that allow us to come to experience that diamond within us, the light of that diamond within us. And in my own life, that's been a very big question. I kind of pretty much devoted my life to that exploration of know thyself through many different traditions, through the philosophical tradition of the Plato and Socrates and Pythagoras, and after that in the Zen tradition through Zen meditation, and most recently in the Jewish tradition studying Kabbalah and Hasidut. And that has led me into a study of the Enneagram tradition, which is a system for understanding personality types. So a lot of my work previously reflected this idea of trying to reach the level of the universal, even though my experience in the Platonic tradition included work with my mentor talking about the challenges of the personal of an individual, myself, and my personal goals, but and to break through a lot of those challenges on a personal level. But ultimately, that is moving towards bringing that universal level within my soul into kind of manifestation. How do I get the energy and the power through me? But it's not my specific power. That's the power of the soul on the universal side. But the interesting thing about the Enneagram, they're talking about the nature of specific kinds of souls. There's also something that Socrates speaks about, also something that's spoken about in many traditions, and that has a connection to the Kabbalistic tradition of the Sphirot, that there are types, specific kinds of souls. And the Enneagram gives a model of this. But I noticed that in the Enneagram, a lot of that discussion is also brought out within these models that I've spoken about. Like a lot of the discussion is not just it's not focused on the powers and gifts of that soul, but or that type of soul, but the challenge of that person faces and how to fix it in kind of a medical model. And one of the primary ways that transformation, fixing of a personality within the Enneagram is through seeing that there's 9 basic types, and that each individual type has a level of disintegration into another type and integration into a different type. So a person has to manage that motion away from the disintegrative or the negative energy that pulls on that type from one direction and move it and balance it in a more positive direction from the other side. So that also is a kind of an analytic model that's dealing with positive and negative energies that we're dealing with on the level of soul, as well as the Enneagram is a real big focus in that tradition, because a lot of the early people that were involved in it come from a Christian tradition. So they saw this as a way of articulating a Christian interpretation or application of the idea of original sin. That they see it that there's an original kind of psychological sin within each type, that a person has to redeem himself from that particular issue with his Enneagram type. And that has become a common theme, whether you're a Christian or not, that has become a common theme within the study of Enneagram. Not to say that any of those things are inaccurate, because there's truths to all the things that we're discussing. These psychological analysis, personality type analysis is something that there's a reason why people relate to it, because it articulates a lot of things that we experience in the human condition. So it articulates an aspect of experience. But in my own approach on the Enneagram, I discovered on my specific journey that I've been trying to understand what exactly is the essence of my type. And I went through an interesting experience, because originally I mistyped myself. And I went through that for several years, actually. And I think this is a very regular occurrence. And I see it, that many people are mistyped. And in fact, when they discuss kind of celebrities, like which type they are, very often I disagree with that type. And I've been reading a lot of biographies, autobiographies, and I see when you go more deeply into famous individuals, they reveal themselves, and you can see very clearly their motivations gives a much better indication of their type. So very often people look at it from a very superficial perspective. But when you go deeply, it's pretty clear. So in the same way, a lot of times when people type themselves or get typed by a test or from another person, they're typing themselves from a superficial level. But the Enneagram is a very sophisticated, profound, deep insight, deep wisdom. So to capture that essence is worth the study, and it can take a little bit of work. But in my own experience, it was very challenging to leave that one type. Though I type myself as one that's kind of connected with the intellectual, my experience as being a professor. So it seemed natural that I fit into that type, an analytic, intellectual book kind of personality. But then I discovered that in truth, my nature and description of who I am, and a lot of my motivations and desires before I became a professor, were really on the creative, more on the creative, open-ended side, which is the personality type right next door to that. So the 5 is there's different names for it. Is that kind of professor type, the analytic type, and then the 4 is considered more the creative, artistic, individualistic type. So that realization was quite astonishing to me. But what is even more astonishing is that when I made that transition, how I was seeing myself, it led me to a, a much more positive experience of my life. I felt relieved and liberated in many ways. And so I saw that as like an indication that this is really the seed of our happiness. This is the seed of connecting to our essence, and on many levels, connects to what our goals, what our appropriate goals for our lives needs to be. What are the things that make us most happy? How to function, how to interrelate with other people. But on a spiritual level, I felt that connecting to that essence of my particular type connected me to something very significant on a spiritual level. Because just for example, it's connecting me back to my vision and experience and desires as a child, how I saw the world, and also the things that I was hoping to do with my life when I was a child. And those experiences are the experiences when we're most clear and when we're the most filled with joy. So when we connect to that kind of original energy of our lives, we're connecting to something very pure and joyful and beautiful. So that's really the source of that kind of liberation. And so I started using this in my own practice, working with some clients and friends, exploring this idea if I could connect the idea of the personality type and see if people were mistyped, or even if they're not mistyped, if helping to articulate and clarify the nature of each type could help people gain a clear sense of themselves and a clear sense of their specific gift and power of their specific soul. And the remarkable thing in this experience is that the clarification of this gift really gives us the power to liberate ourselves from a lot of the personal challenges that we face. This is really remarkable, is that the potential of this kind of understanding gives us the power, the kind of gift, the light that's going to allow us to free ourselves from a lot of the issues that play out in our mental lives, from even talking about the most challenging kind of forms of addiction and so forth. Serious things that I've had success discussing with people working on themselves. That this really is a source of power. A lot of times there's another criticism of this level of the soul that we started out talking about, is that just because you know something, how does it affect your life? Like I hear this all the time, and it's such a criticism of the philosophical tradition that just because you have an insight intellectually, how is that going to transform into actually making a difference in my particular life? And they always give this example, I can know smoking's bad for me, but I still can't stop smoking. But that's a very shallow look at the nature of the soul, the nature of the power of understanding. The power of understanding is to get that clear vision and connecting us really to harmonize us with our true nature. So when we're in harmony with our true nature, really in harmony with how we've been created in this world, how we function in this world, then we're in alignment and we gain the power and the freedom of that alignment. And that's the ultimate aim. So it's not just a thought in our head, it's really a transformation of our being, as our friend Dimitri would say. That's our being, right? Connecting to the essence of who we are, that there is a real essence in our soul. Our soul is is a certain kind of being, and that we all have a specific kind of soul. So just because it's a specific kind doesn't mean it's not connected to essence. The essence functions on various levels. On the ultimate essence is the universal soul. That's going to be beyond specific kinds and types. But as that universal soul is manifested within human life, it comes in a specific structure, and that structure unfolds, like a rainbow, like color coming into the world of light. Excuse me, light coming into the world of color. It comes into 7 different waves. Well, the idea here is that the soul is one light in a certain respect, but it comes down into 9 different colors in this model. I don't know if this is the only model, but it fits with the Kabbalah and fits with the psychological Enneagram system that's very popular. So, and it's based on the idea of the 3 basic parts of human being, the higher intellectual, the heart, and then the body or instinctive. So that there's 3 different kind of centers of life within us, and each person has a focus in their lives relating to those different centers and how they're organized, different challenges of living life through one of those centers in different ways. So as it goes develops, it can get a little complicated, but that is the basic idea. So the idea is how can we can discover that power that we have, the intrinsic power that our soul has, both on as its kind, but now we can, once we connect to the kind of soul we are, we can see how that specific power functions within the experience of our life and its history. All the experiences we have, all our challenges, our family life, from the history of our family life, our contemporary challenges, or all the different life experiences that have shaped us. So we can connect that certain light going through all that experience, and the interconnection of that specific nature within our experience can provide a tremendous clarity for improving our lives and also helping us grow spiritually. So that is really the power or the opportunity to get back to seeing our specific soul like that diamond, that shines so beautifully. Because when we see, because what in like my experience, what I ultimately saw is that some of the things that were kind of nagging on my own thinking that were disturbing me, I realized, hey, that gift that I gain as part of this type, that's the answer to what's bothering me. So there's actually a challenge of each type. There are challenges of each type, but that type also provides the solution. And I think there's a tendency in the Enneagram world that I've seen not to realize that the solution is inherent within the very type because of this medical models, other religious ideas. But from a spiritual, philosophical perspective, the source of the wisdom that we need is connected in the essence of our soul. So that's what I've been looking for. And I made a lot of progress in connecting to it. And I'm really inspired to share it. I had to begin to share that process. And I'm launching tonight this Zoom to begin the discussion of these ideas and find various ways we can communicate about them and develop them together and explore them. And it's challenging because a lot of it has to do on a personal level, finding the appropriate way to share our personal stories, to communicate our questions and so forth. So I'm going to share with you some of the ideas I have, and I'm open to anyone else's ideas of how we can improve, because the ultimate goal is to build a community around this pursuit. So some of the ways I'm planning to do this is to begin by launching these weekly Zoom sessions. And in these sessions, what I'm going to do is let me just say, I'm going to have the Zoom session, then I'm going to start a Facebook group, if that is a good medium for most people, where I'm going to share some of the ideas during the week and hear questions and feedback from the group participants during the week. And then on these Zoom sessions, I'll have an opportunity to deal with some of the questions and the issues people have, but also ultimately I would like to share with you the specific methods that I've gained in my life for helping people work through these kinds of issues, because I've adapted all the different things that I've learned over the years, including my mentorship with my teacher, Pierre Grimes, who developed a whole approach of Socratic counseling, called philosophical midwifery, that is remarkably powerful. But he never connected the idea to personality types, and I think that's really essential. And also, I've adapted some of his ideas to an emphasis in certain directions in the way I work with people. But that study also includes the role of dream exploration, because the idea of this approach is that as part of a spiritual universe, and a universe that's directed by providence, that our work trying to come closer to our essence, to the truth guiding our soul, is met with a response from the universe, however you understand that. So that there's a greater intelligence guiding our experience, and the more we seek to come closer to that intelligence that we have an opportunity to share in, that intelligence is going to reveal more to us. So one of the ways that it's revealed is through our dreams. So that as we're making the active exploration to improve our lives, our dreams are going to lend support in that process. So a lot can be learned through dreams. And all these studies and explorations are there to help us develop our own capabilities of the intelligence that we have in our souls, and to grow. And that whole process is then simultaneously helping us grow spiritually. So the very activity of going through this kind of self-development and these kinds of explorations is helping us have a clear sense of how to know ourselves, not only in the particular, but also in the philosophical way. It's cleaning the windows, the eyes of our soul, to see the nature of reality more clearly, and to see the beauty and intelligence and wisdom that surrounds us. So that is the nature of the process. So I would like to share how I integrate dream exploration, goal exploration, or explorations of Enneagram, and just practical explorations of our personal lives and our goals, how all these things are integrated together on the path to ultimately to know ourselves. And another aspect that's really important is to understand that the whole path of self-development and spiritual development is a life journey, because a lot of the work that's done today in psychology and even kind of different spiritual forms of psychology is very is within a certain framework that approach is, like, oh, you're going to do this in a few weeks, you're going to do this over a certain amount of time, there's a certain steps you're going to take, and that's like, you're going to go through this path and get a very specific outcome in a certain amount of time that's going to lead to your transformation, right? Or practice this certain thing and you're going to get a very specific outcome, your transformation. Well, I was very much into this model, and it's something I received from my own teacher, that you have a problem and we're here to fix it. We're help to make this breakthrough, the breakthrough, right? So that's a kind of the ultimate holy grail of psychology and kind of new age psychological spirituality and coaching and so forth, to get that magical breakthrough. And I was really one of the worst examples of that as well. That was really motivated me to share this power to help people make breakthroughs. But what I've seen as I've matured over the years, hopefully matured, is that there's something more natural and organic in our life development that needs to be respected. That it's very true that we can make breakthroughs. People go make breakthroughs in all different ways. There's lots of techniques for making breakthroughs. But I think what's most ultimately valuable is that longer journey picture, the story of our soul, that we're trying to unfold, and that you can't control. You can't control. It's a matter of like it's like it's as if you're writing a novel. It's a long story. It's a long book, and you don't know where the next event, the next character is going to come from, the next insight that's going to develop the story and all fit together in this very dynamic way. We really can't be in control of. So I think that what we need to do is balance these two approaches. One, that it's certainly legitimate to make a breakthrough, that we seek breakthroughs and and desire them and be open to them, but realize that the breakthrough is not the holy grail. That breakthrough is part of the picture that we have to integrate with the natural development of our lives. It's like an athlete who wants to make a breakthrough to get to the next level of his abilities. At the same time, he needs to build his whole self. He can't just do one little muscle. He's able to be a little stronger in one little direction. He has to build his whole capacity for receiving that greater power. And I think that's what ultimately spiritual development and growth has to be about, is that it takes the time to build that whole person and to look at our lives from that holistic perspective, that we're not in control of that time clock on that. So that's another reason why I wanted to do it in this format, so we could build a community. It's something that we could participate and share along together and realize that it's an open-ended, long journey that a person can participate in a way without the kind of high pressure of I'm doing it in 4 weeks or 6 weeks and this is the outcome. But it's something that will have aspects of that approach to wanting certain outcomes, but at the same time, it's really directed for people who by nature are seekers, are really seeking for that inner truth, spiritual seekers that want to understand life better, that want to fulfill that maxim that we're sharing, know thyself, that it's a life journey for that ultimate pursuit. And that's what of the ultimate meaning and value in life. I think so. I said a lot more than I was planning to, and I'd be open to hearing anyone's thoughts, questions, suggestions.
Yeah, hi, Avi. Thanks for sharing all this. I have a question about your transition in the Enneagram.
Yeah.
What kind of analytical approach or other approach did you follow in identifying and making a transition from a 5 to a 4, for example?
Yeah, it's a great question. Trial and error. I think that ultimately, and this is something I really believe in, is that whatever path we're on, it doesn't have to be, it's probably not going to be the best path, right? But it's really important to commit to something. This is something I learned from my teacher. No matter what you're doing, choose a goal. It might not be the ultimate goal, but choose that goal and put your whole self into it, because you learn from that process. And through that process, you'll see what's missing. So that's what I did. I don't think I did it purposely. I thought I knew the truth. But in general, that's what I do. If I believe in something, I utilize it, but I keep my eyes open to see if it's working, if it makes sense. And so I'm open to the change, and not everyone has that. But I am blessed that I'm very open to seeing that big potential change. It took a while. It's not like I did it in one day. It took a few years to realize, and the change was difficult. I don't underestimate that issue. And when I shared that change with other people, they also found it difficult. By the way, not everybody mistypes themselves. Some people are very clear, but I had one close friend, for example. He also mistyped himself, and it was very difficult. He went through a very similar experience that I did, but it had tremendous benefits. Yeah. So trial and error. That's my approach.
I had a question about if your proposed group is based on the Enneagram, then obviously we should locate a test and type ourselves.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So
is there an online one that you recommend?
Yeah. I'm not an expert on which test is best, but there's an organization called think it's enneagram.com. Ross, I was going to send it. I'm going to put it in the Facebook group. And they have a free one, and then one you pay for. So you can do whatever you wish, but you can just go for the free one. And what will happen is you'll come down to like 2 or 3 that are potential types for yourself, and that's good. That's good. And then what we can do is I'll go through those, what people think, and I'll show you how I hone it down, some of the key pointers for helping people identify their type. But we all have many aspects to our personality that have an influence on us, and it's good to know the range of those. But it takes some reflection to capture the one most accurately. Although some people may get it very easily. I think it's very different for different people. And I think one thing I do want to mention is really important. It's very hard to see yourself. It's not a simple issue, and to admit that I actually, it's quite astonishing to kind of realize, wait a second, I can be put in a box. And we think our personality, our special soul is different than everyone else's, and in a certain way it is. But it's a little disturbing to realize, like, a lot of the thoughts that go through my head are the same kinds of thoughts that that millions of people also share that are in my type. That is really strange. It's a strange experience. But the more you study, the more you see it's true. And I'll tell you, an interesting, I joined one group online, a Facebook group, for my specific type. And so part of that type is to be unique. So one person was writing about this, and then there was like 20, 30 responses. And I read all these responses, and all the people responded in the same way that I felt. Everyone sounded like I could have written that response. And I said, it's so nice to be part of a group where we're all unique, and I identify so closely with everything everyone says. It's very ironic, right? So we have to be open to that, which on the one hand is disturbing because it kind of limits our individuality. But another way I want to encourage is that it's liberating, because we have to learn a tremendous amount and focus our energy on better places. And at the same time, our specific expression of that type is absolutely unique. There's obviously still something unique in each individual person. That's why it's a diamond. The diamond, everyone is unique. So we are unique, but it's how we express that specific personality type within our lives or the issues. And there are various combinations. So we're all different connections because we have influences from our parents for certain types. We have influences from what's called wings, the types on our side, and then levels of integration and disintegration. So there are many different numbers that are having an effect on us. So the particular code that we have is very unique, and then connecting to our specific experience, and then all the other things that influence our personality. I'm not saying this is the exclusive one, but I find it a very accurate and amazing model.
And is the plan for this Zoom meeting to last 1 hour?
Well, what I'm going to do, I really didn't mean to speak so long, but what I'm going to do in the future is speak much less, and would like to open up to certain questions and exploration. So I really would like to share with you what I think is most beneficial is to share with people how I work with individuals. So like if a person has a question about, am I this type? How we kind of clarify, right? And see a person's experience of how they, is what I'm saying true for you? Is it going to assist you in this process? So that's what I would like to share. One of the things, that's the foundation. That's the foundation I'd like to share. Then we can explore how our certain type relates to goals, and as we go through different goals and our spiritual development and dream explorations, and then really the wonderful thing is seeing the providential aspect of this as we go out to try to improve ourselves. How does our experience in the world complement that? Is there, what's the word? We have a word in Hebrew we say all the time, but in English it's called can't think of the word. And something is providential, you know, when things come together in our lives that fit what's that? Anybody help me with that? Okay, anyway, but you know, we see that our experience in our world, there's you know, the so-called accidents occur to actually support and connect to what we're doing. We pick up a book or an idea or connect with somebody who assists us in the direction that we're heading, gives us a clear message.
Synchronicity.
Synchronicity, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Goodness. So a divine synchronicity, I would say, providential synchronicity. So it's a beautiful thing to see, because we see that we're part of this kind of living universe, living, intelligent, caring universe. That's benevolence, which is the ultimate conception of the philosophical and religious traditions, that we're part of a benevolent universe.
Avram, I like what you were describing, this process of looking at self-development, not as a quick fix,
Yeah.
But more as a lifetime process. And as quick fixes, you know, you have, as you said, you have breakthroughs, which are part of the picture. And I'm wondering if this leads to this expanding horizon to the idea that many lives are required. You know, if I begin to look upon this as a life process, is one life enough, you know?
Well, as the great sages have said, probably not, you know, probably not. But our efforts here in doing this kind of work certainly will be beneficial in that process. You know, we leave, as Plato says, we leave with what we learn in this world. We're here to learn. We're here to learn. We're here to choose our future lives, and that's what the karmic view of the human life story is about. It's shared between the West and the East. That our karma, what we learn from it, determines our next life and our growth, and also hopefully has influence on the greater whole. You know, our work shouldn't be just for us, but bringing this energy and these ideas to birth in the world. And so, to continue, so what I would like to do is kind of open-ended. Maybe, you know, I'm open to doing up to 2 hours, and people could participate as long as they wish, you know, during that time. But I have an opportunity to speak to a few people and give examples of how I work with individuals. And then there'll be opportunities that if people want to go more detailed, maybe personal things, more in detail in their own personal lives, that we'll find various ways that I could work with people outside this context. And I'm going to offer a couple of different ways, either as we go, some that will be ways that we can do this just in email form, but then other people want to be more serious and go into you know, detailed sessions with me, and we find a way that we can do that as part of the group. But that would obviously be on a professional basis. But in this context, I'm going to be offering a certain level for free, because like I said, I would like to continue exploring these ideas, sharing these, and give these as examples for people to encourage people in this direction.
I have another Zoom meeting starting at this next hour.
Okay,
So
please.
do I.
Yeah.
So,
No problem. Thank you for joining us. And I think
Yeah.
we shoot for. My email is avramapatow@gmail. So if you could contact me with your email, and most of the people on the list from TED I have. So, but others who may not have, if you're interested, please do. But I'm here if anyone has any other questions in the meantime.
thank you. Thank you, Avram.
Okay.
Wait.
Who else is there? Hello, Debbie. Hi,
Oh,
Susan.
yeah.
Yes, I am.
Susie. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions, suggestions, or comments been like to share? Okay.
Well, this is a lot of information in the very beginning, but
I agree.
if I was to say what my interest is, it really is the mind moment to moment. This it's not even working through the mind. If I was to say, it's not an intellectual thing.
Yes.
It's just a question of well, this idea of self-knowledge, and this idea of, and it's not even what I would say would be knowledge. It would be more like maybe existential or ontological, my experience of myself.
But
And
that
I
would be,
just,
excuse me.
it's
Continue.
very difficult to talk about that because I don't know what I'm expressing exactly. But I just can give an example of today. I'm making coffee, and I can see that something is being called for right now to be related in a bigger way. And I could also see that at this moment, I have this choice to just make coffee like I always make coffee. And what happens is there's a certain level of energy it's very automatic and it's very low. I won't call it low, but it's just the habitual way of doing things. And then there's this other way to kind of say, well, how do I make coffee at this moment that actually keeps me related, plugged in, something possible in this moment. And that to me is just like, that's the moment to moment. But in that moment, I'm really not sure of anything. Matter of fact, I don't even know. It's really strange because it's the opposite of expertise. It's the opposite of it's just, oh, okay. Well, now it's very simple. I got the spoon in my hand, and now I have to put the spoon in the espresso cup, and it's just, but in a way, that's utter simplicity. But I felt more connected at that moment than all the other moments of the morning where it just kind of goes automatically.
Zen and the art of coffee making.
Yes. And whatever else I'm
Yeah.
doing, but that
Okay,
idea of just trying to remember
Right.
to be open,
Yeah.
and I'm always and I'm really interested in, I'm not so interested in so much knowledge,
Yeah.
because again, unless I can learn a new way to take it in a fresh way, but everything gets taken in the old-fashioned way,
Yeah.
and that doesn't enliven my relationship too much.
Yeah. Well, what you describe is beautiful, a beautiful experience, beautiful way of living. That's, this is the Zen way of life, right? Moment by moment, and not through analysis, but to be fully present in our experience and let a kind of intuitive flow occur that where we do feel connected, and amazing magical things happen, right? And we appreciate the simple experience of just being and living and doing in a very profound, remarkable way. So we're not against that for sure. That's beautiful, wonderful, and we all would like to expand into that state of mind as much as possible. The question here is that, well, a few ways we could look at it. One way is, are there times when I'm in that state and times I'm not, right? Are there times that I cut that state off? Are there times that I limit my depth of that experience? And why do I go back and forth? This is a question that we used to deal with my teacher. a lot. We integrated philosophy and Zen practice, looking at those transitions of when I'm open, willing to allow myself to be in that state, and when not, and what can I learn about my life to allow me to free myself from the parts of my experience that block me from being in that state. And so that's one thing. But also in terms of our discussion here today is how would that experience relate to the gift of my soul? You know, do I have a special gift, like to talk about that experience on a more universal level, in the sense of as me as a certain kind of soul, do I have a certain connection to those experiences more than other people, more affinity to them? Is that my gift, right? And am I recognizing that gift? That's one possibility. So that's where I would take it in terms of our discussion. That would be the knowledge that would be helpful, you know, would be harmonious with your experience. The knowledge of how is that revealing something about my specific being that allows me to share in that beautiful state. So
I thought your discussion was very interesting
yeah,
about breakthrough not being the Holy Grail,
yeah,
and that it's something more organic, a longer journey that you
Yeah.
can't control and can't predict. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
something specific that you would like to?
No, I'm just trying to think about why the breakthrough is not the Holy Grail. Why the breakthrough, the goal, let's say, is not the thing that you're trying to find.
Okay, because for several possible reasons. One is, in most instances, it's temporary. It's temporary, and people fall back into regular life. Even, you know, great masters, they become great masters and they fall. They have to be, you know, we have this, like in the Jewish tradition, is really a remarkable tradition in this respect. The founder of our religion, Moses, he's reached this highest level of connection with God. And in our tradition, we say nobody could reach that level as he reached. But you know what? Our whole book is about the mistakes he made. You know, really strange. We're a strange tradition. It's about his mistakes and his failure. You know, like we're a people, and we are our leader, you know, and our founder, he failed. So it's this acknowledgement of the human condition. We're all human. We're all human. So a person can make those breakthroughs, but they still have to deal with the fact they're a human being. And that's our challenge. And we're here for a reason, and that reason is beyond us. You know, so a lot of spiritual traditions say, no, the whole reason is just to get beyond this world. But this is a different kind of understanding. It's saying, no, we're here for a reason. We're here to grow, and everyone, you know, there's no one here who's perfect, and no one here who's going to be perfect. You may participate in perfection. You may participate. You may have the great opportunity to participate in that level of kind of divine life. You know, but you're not going to stay there, and you're not going to be perfect in your life, because we're here to learn. You know, if we were perfect, we'd be angels. We're not angels. We're here to be human beings and to learn. And that learning takes place because there's a director. You know, there's a director to the movie, and he's caring for us. He's directing life to help us grow and to learn from our experience. You know, so that's the perspective I come from. We're here to learn, to grow, and we have to be humble enough to recognize that we're part of a story that's here for our benefit, and that we're participating and have to, and to be part of that story, it means to be part of an unfolding development. And that from the day we're born till the day we die, we have the opportunity. So this is to say, let's not fool ourselves. Because that's the thing about these kind of breakthroughs and highs of spiritual growth, psychological growth, is that you reach a level, you know, we become, I'm invincible, I'm great, I'm perfect, you know.
Mhm.
And that's the fall of all the, you know, any great person. They reach that state and they're fooled by it. They make big mistakes. So the reason is that the reason they make those mistakes is that we should all realize we're ultimately here to learn.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Avram. I
My
hope to
pleasure.
speak again.
Yeah, look forward to it. So hopefully we'll reconvene next week, and I'll try to contact all the people and share some more as we continue. So thanks so
I'll
much,
see you.
everyone, for
You bet.
coming.
Oh, wait.
Pleasure.
So is this it?
Oh, hey. Okay.